Hey folks, welcome back to Lonely Horde Guitars. Today, while I've got the shop mostly clean as I get ready to go into the next phase of building the six-pack that I'm working on right now, I figured I would give a shop tour. I get a lot of questions about the shop. Usually clients want to see it, friends of clients want to see it. So I figure I'd do this video tour. I'll talk about sort of what you need to, or at least what I think I need to do what I do, and how alternates for that, and how I use things that I would do differently. Mostly it's going to be kind of just stream of consciousness as I walk around and point at some machines and go, this is what I do with this. So let's get going. So we'll start off with let's pan around and see what we've got here. The shop itself is about 600 square feet. It's a basement shop. I do have a walkout, so I can get big machines in and out fairly easily. Fortunately, it is broken up into two rooms, so contiguous space would be better, but it works out. And let's kind of go get started over here with sort of the beating heart of any woodworker's shop, the table saw. So this is fairly old. It's got to be almost 30 years now. Delta contractor saw, heavily modified. It is, set up now so that we can collect dust on it. It's got a way better fence than the original one. That was a huge upgrade. The original fence was honestly junk. I got a couple pieces of koa here that are waiting to get processed, mostly sitting out because if I stick them in the stack, then it's going to disappear off my radar. For the most part, this has been okay. For what I do now on guitars and stuff like this, this is plenty of power and precision for a table saw. And then as we move around here, we've got the drum sander. Again, hooked up through dust collection. This I've been pretty happy with, though if I had it to do over again, I would have gone for the 18-inch. So this is the 16/32, where theoretically you can swipe wood. It's got an open side here, so you can put wider pieces of wood in it and deal with it. I thought 16 inches was going to be fine because most guitars are about 15 or 16, but it's not really, it's not like 16 usable. Depending on the way you wrap the sandpaper and stuff, you may have a little bit more and you're right on the edge. I definitely would have paid the extra, couple $100 or $300 I think it was, and get the 18 if I had it to do all over again. Right next to it is the joiner, and this is a 6-inch joiner. It does have the carbide tipped blades for the head. This has worked out just fine. I don't really need anything bigger for guitar work. 6 inches has been just fine. And for many years I didn't even have a joiner. This is a rather recent addition to the shop. I did all my joining on the table saw, a well-tuned table saw with a nice, lots of teeth blade will make a pretty clean cut. And I basically did those cuts on the table saw for years. The joiner is certainly faster and more reliable at doing that job, but not entirely necessary. A I will say the drum sander, let's hop back to that again. I did for many years do solid bodies and had no need of a drum sander. There were things that it would have made easier, but worked out just fine. Once I got into acoustics, the drum sander is sort of a must-have. Drill press. This is an okay drill press. It is not great. It is not bad. The only major complaint I have about it is that the table can tilt 90 degrees, but you basically got to take the table apart to make it happen. So when it comes time to drill out, like, control cavity jacks and things like that on it, it's sort of a pain. Knowing what I know now, I probably would have found something a little bit different to do it. Miter saw. Again, this is probably going to be in most everybody's shop, but if you're just doing crosscuts, table saw with a crosscut sled will work just fine. And this guy takes up a lot of space. If once you start doing 45s and miters and things like that, of course you need this, or certainly makes it easier. Those are harder to do on a table saw. But for straight crosscuts, which is what I probably do 95–98% of the time, I could have just done this with a table saw. In the corner here, we've got the scroll saw. I sort of scooch it a little bit out whenever I need it. This I use mostly for doing the fine work that I could do on a bandsaw, but switching out blades takes time, so it's just faster to use the little scroll saw. Up above all that, lumber storage. This is where most of the exotics from somebody in southeastern Pennsylvania say. So there's a lot of limb up here, some sapele, sycamore, not quite exotic, ebony, paduk. There's all kinds of like stray lumber in here. Of course, there's some regular stuff too. Regular for Southeast PA, walnut up here too, and a little bit of maple. Dust collection. This is the Jet. I think it's a 3 horsepower. I see we've got the little tentacles here going all over the place. Down here where we hook into these 3 machines. Along the wall where we get to the bandsaw and the sanding table and the router table. And then most recently, I'll run back over here to try and capture stuff on the miter saw. Still not 100% happy on capturing dust from the miter saw, but this is working a whole lot better than just having the bag on the end. So dust collection is always a continuous improvement kind of thing, trying to get that better and better. Bandsaw, this also predates me working in the guitar world. For resaws, I really probably would like to have something a little bit bigger and beefier, but this does the job. It's okay. I do a lot of rips on the bandsaw. I find that I can save material by doing the rip on the bandsaw and then cleaning up the edge on the table saw or the jointer. I can get a thinner cut than if I were doing it on the table saw alone. So if I'm trying to work through something, that is expensive material, then bandsaw is the way to go. Next in line here is the sanding table. This is basically a reclaimed bathroom cabinet. And I have put a sloped bottom in here so that most of the dust makes it out to the port. This is just pegboard. I have over drilled it a little bit to 5/16 and then sanded it down to get it smooth again. That works great. Also becomes my sometimes just a work table. So I've got a couple lights up here and I can get it super bright for sanding and looking for lines and so forth. Next along this run is the router table. I've had this router table again for decades. If I had it to do all over again, I would get something taller so I could put a more powerful router underneath there. Right now I think it's a 1 3/4. I would like something a little bit beefier, but at the moment it's doing what it needs to do. The bench is fairly standard, you know, just plywood bench with a little bit of storage underneath. You can see a bunch of clamps, stack of routers. Routers, of course, being one of the things that make guitar making easier. So I do have quite a selection of those floating around the shop. There's, of course, one in the router table. I've got one bigger router here, and then that smaller Colt is great for held kind of small stuff. A little 20 amp power strip there, so you've got routers and so forth. Bench clamp. Go a little farther around, we've got a wood rack and holds a little bit of tools, mostly for the table saw. Over here we kind of work our way back, clamps on the walls, lots of templates, and some neck blank material. This is getting kind of dark in here. So we have just various scraps and bits for doing guitar pieces. Over on the other side, body blanks, tops, backs and sides. Lots and lots of spare lumber for doing guitars. Stack fretboards. Sanding dishes just kind of propped up here. This is where my compressor is, underneath there, and a sound box. I don't use that much, certainly not for making guitars, but for building templates and jigs and so forth like that. Occasionally they get nailed in. I think I did up top here is various molds and bending tools. This is various parts for guitars, but what I like to do is, these Chewy boxes are great. This is basically all the hardware that needs to go into a 5-string bass that is coming up soon. We've already got the pickups, we got our tuners, we got our bridge. So as I assemble a project, I set aside a little box with all the parts, and we're good to go. Over here is just some, well, it is a bass amp that I use for testing. It's also been modified so that a different head can drive the cabinet portion of it. So when I work on amplifiers and so forth, I can plug into that and use that for testing. And then some various scraps. I think I've mentioned this before, that one of my favorite things to use, old yoga mats. Man, they are great for applying pressure when gluing up, giving a nice surface so I don't scuff up things. One of the best, not tools, but a tool you can have. All right, then we'll move over here into the other room. We've got more lumber storage up top. Over here is the planer. So planer, that's kind of a must-have. If you're not just, you know, buying parts and assembling, then you're going to need one. This one has been hot rodded a little bit. It does have the helical head on it, and dust port has been moved to the top, which it makes it way more efficient for collecting dust than the front-facing one that used to be over here. Follow that around. Got a smaller 2 horsepower dust collector in this room. This is where having 600 contiguous feet would have been very helpful, because I probably could have stuck with the one dust collector centrally located in a big room versus having 2 dust collectors, one for each room. Running those lines would have been problematic. I do have a lathe. This is not used for the guitar building currently, but one of the things that I am having trouble finding and sourcing is reliable bridge pins. So the only thing that I do not fabricate on my own outside of, you know, strings and pickups and so forth is bridge pins and like tail pins. So, and I want to be able to get them in, you know, weird things. I have some beautiful plum that I would like to make into bridge pins, but I can't. So probably in the next few months there will be a project to figure out how to make this do that. I expect this chuck is probably super overkill for that kind of thing. Over on this corner shelf here are a lot of the templates and jigs for doing neck stuff. So on the solid bodies, these machines here are all for profiling the neck. Down below I have various radiusing sanding blocks and slides for routers for doing the radius on fretboards. Up near the top we've got our binding router. We've got a couple of Dremel tools that I use for doing rosettes and various other miscellaneous jigs. This is for doing neck joints. This guy here is for flattening bodies that won't fit in the planer. So if I'm doing, like, you know, a 15-inch wide solid body, that'll do that with a planer. All right, so this is about a little more wood storage over here too. Ignore this mess over in this corner. Also, humidifier or dehumidifier. Oh man, anybody knows good dehumidifiers that last more than 18 months? Please let me know in the comments. It's hard to find. My first one lasted 20 years. Now I can't find any that last more than 18 months. All right, so if this is the kind of content you like, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you at the next one.